Right, it's time for another cycling video. My name is Matt and I want to talk about a bike build that I've done recently, which is of this all-city space horse. I'll talk about why I started it, the components that I put in the bike, how it's looking at the moment, and what I'm going to do next to it. So let's go back to the start. So the reason I picked this out in the first place, because I had my hardtail nicked. I needed a new bike for off-roading and general purpose, child carrying, all that kind of stuff. The obvious thing would have been to just get a new hardtail, and I did start looking at steel hardtails like this Stanton Sherpa and the Pace equivalent. I then saw this Indie Fab Rigid 29 and thought it looked like a really nice bike. Obviously rigid, so slightly less mountain bikey, although it is still very much a mountain bike. And then was doing a little bit more looking around and saw this Space Horse on the Blue Lug site, and have always wanted to do a sort of flat bar hybrid self-build type thing, and thought, as things stand, having a bit less time to cycle, getting something general purpose like this rather than a pure hardtail would be the way to go. So I thought I'd grab the opportunity whilst I got it. So after a bit of searching around, I found this frame on eBay, which is a 2017 all-city Space Horse. The geometry's road, adventure, Audax sort of style, but with clearance for wider tyres and a 1x transmission. And it's very, very do it all. You can set it up drop bar, flat bar, whatever. Because it's a few years old, it's got post mount calipers and it takes a quick release hub, which I'm fine with. So the person I bought it off left the bottom bracket in, which is a road bottom bracket, and most of a headset, which I'll get into in a second. But so because it had some bits already in it, I decided early on to try and live with everything that was already on it and try and get as many of the spare parts I had lying around on it as well. So what that meant was the bottom bracket is a road bottom bracket, and I have a load of mountain bike stuff, like a big wide range cassette 10-speed, a 10-speed chain, and some other stuff like that. So yeah, the approach was very much like live with what's on the frame and the spare parts I've got and just crunch as much of it together as possible, and then just buy some extra bits to fill in the blanks. So let's get started with the headset. So I thought, given it came with half a headset, I thought getting that sorted as soon as possible would be a good idea. Given I'm sort of making this stuff up as I go along and don't have a huge amount of experience with this, but. So that was I found the sort of schema for the headset and identified the bits that were missing. Was able to order those on eBay quite easily, and then screwed all that together with a stem and a bar that again found on eBay, both relatively new. So that was all straightforward. The didn't put that much research into them, and I don't think they look the best. So I'd be looking to maybe change those at a later date, but they're fine for now. Next up, wheels and tyres. So yeah, the frame's quick release, but wheels can always be converted from quick release to through axle. So I thought I'd go for a decent set of Four Season Hunt wheels, because that's for my sort of riding. I'm always going to be able to make use of them, whether I need to keep them quick release or convert them further down the line for something else. So I know Hunt, and I'll just go for a new set of wheels. There's so many tyre options to go with here, like Gravel Kings and all that kind of thing. In the end, I just didn't put that much thought into it, and I went with what my reference bike had on, which were these Terravale Cannonballs in 38mm with the gum wall, whatever you call it. So that seemed like a good option. So I was trying to get this bike built for a ride I had in the diary. So I was just going to bang some inner tubes in the tyres and be done with it, but I couldn't find my CO2 inflator and all this kind of thing. But in the end, I just thought, you know what, I've got some sealant, I've got some valves, let's just go for it. So what I have found works well for tubeless is seating the tyre first, like getting some water around the bead, seating the tyre, and then injecting the sealant through the valve hole. So that's what I did here, and luckily all good. Went up first time, and no problem. Next up was the brake rotors. Went for some standard Shimano XT ones, and this was the first time. I think this was the first time I've put centre lock brake rotors on, and I can see why it's popular, because it's just a heck of a lot quicker than doing the old 6-bolt way. And the bottom bracket tool, I didn't even know this at the point I bought this, but the Shimano bottom bracket tool fits centre lock brake rotors as well, which is a bit of a touch. So got those on, got the cassette on. Right, let's take a look at the drivetrain next. So I mentioned earlier that I wanted to live within the components that I already had. So road bottom bracket, mountain bike cassette, spare mountain bike chain, that kind of thing. So now, to make sure I didn't fall foul of any compatibility issues, I went for a setup which I've seen work online, seen plenty of bikes pictured online as using, which is a GRX crank and a Dior rear derailleur. So that's what I've got: 10-speed rear Dior rear derailleur, and then I went for a GRX 810 crank, which I found online. Found it on eBay. I think the person who was selling it, and it said in the comments of the listing, they'd taken it off a bike that they'd just bought because they were putting some power cranks on or something like that. So it was used new sort of thing. And then I went for a Wolf Tooth 38 tooth chain ring. With the last bike, the bike that got nicked, the hardtail, one of the biggest improvements that I had was by putting a better chain ring on it. And with that previous bike, I went for a round absolute black 30 tooth. Because this bike I'm going to be using on the road more, I went for a 38 and went for a Wolf Tooth. Got to be a bit careful here though, because it's the Wolf Tooth, the GRX Spider is slightly different to the 105 and the Ultegra, so I had to make sure I got a Wolf Tooth 110 for the GRX crank. That all got screwed together pretty easily, and then cassette on the back and the rear derailleur. The chain is a Dior, and when it came to measuring it, I put the measurements into an online calculator, which told me the chain needed to be full length. So I set it up like that, which does feel like a lot of chain to have on a bike. So this is something I might look at further down the line. The cassette is a Sunrace 10-speed 11 to 46, and that 46 I just don't need. So I think I might go for a 10 to 42 or an 1142 at some point, which will cut some weight down and cut some of the chain off as well. So that's a potential one for the future. That's the drivetrain. The brakes, I've set these. I've done an SLX brake installation before, and when I was thinking about what to use, because I didn't have any brakes before buying the frame, so there was a few routes I could go down, mechanical or hydro like these. And I think whilst I think mechanical disc does work better flat bar potentially, I thought the SLX brakes that I'd had previously had worked so well on my mountain bike, I thought I'd just get a set of those again. And then so this is me just screwing those on and getting them all dialed in. What I found to work well here is just to do everything by eye rather than try to measure stuff or anything like that. I think just lining up the caliper by eye over the rotor and stuff like that all is the best way of reducing any pad rub. And then it was just on to the final bits, which are things like the grips and the saddle. I don't love the saddle that I've got on this bike. It's just a Bontrager that I had lying around. It just doesn't look that great, and I don't think it's quite right for the frame either. I think something a bit more relaxed would be good on it. The grips I had left over from my Brompton, I bought them to stick on my Brompton, and these were interesting to put, and I couldn't stop them slipping even with putting some hairspray in there, so I ended up using some Gorilla Glue, which has done the job. They're not going anywhere. So this is the completed build. The main areas that I'm not happy with at this point are I'd say the saddle and the stem and handlebar. Saddle, I think it needs to be slightly... there's probably a better one that I could use, but the stem and handlebar, I think going all silver chrome would be good, because I quite like the way the seat post looks against the frame. So maybe switching out the black stem and handlebar at some point, even though they ride really nicely, both of them, and the sort of shape of them and geo and all that stuff's good, but I think just for aesthetics going silver would be nice at some point. And then, yeah, need to get some proper pedals, some flat pedals on here at some stage. So how does this bike feel? The way, at risk of stating the obvious, it feels nippy, direct, and efficient. You know, it's great for cycle paths and light gravel and the road and stuff like that. So all in all, really pleased with it. The next stage is going to be to get my child seat on it and see how that's going, and see what it's like as a sort of dad bike. But that'll come next. The only issue I have with it at this point is I wish it was slightly less aggro. You know, I've seen things like the Surly Bridge Club, which just, when I look at it compared to the Space Horse, it just looks like it might be a slightly more forgiving ride. Don't know, but that's one I'm going to keep an eye on and see how I go over the coming months of riding it. So let me know what you think down in the comments. I'd be interested to know if there's something I could have done differently, or if there's something I've missed here, and I'll make a few more changes and do a follow-up video a bit further down the line.